Baltimore Ravens, you're on the clock. Welcome back to this video series where we go through and do all 7 rounds of the mock draft for the Baltimore Ravens. If you haven't checked out some of our other ones, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to go through, I'm going to give you my opinions, and I'm going to try to pick the players I think best fit what the Ravens are going to look to do, which is going to be really hard because right now they don't have a head coach, right? John Harbaugh has been fired. We've heard a lot of the rumor mills. They're looking to start doing some interviews. Brian Flores, Davis Webb, Vance Joseph, Matt Nagy. I mean, there's countless names that are going to come through the doors and talk with the team and potentially be the next head coach of the Ravens. But that today does not matter. Today, I am the GM.
I'm the captain now.
We are going to make these decisions and make sure you comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, this looks a lot different depending on who the head coach is. If it's a team that's going to look to defense, look to offense, who knows what they're going to do, but I'm going to make some judgments. I'm going to make some choices. These are my 10 picks for the Baltimore Ravens. Let's get to it. The amazing thing is when you look at this team, I don't think they're really that far off. Obviously, they were playing the last week of the season to get into the playoffs, and it just didn't go their way. This is a team that's typically been good running football. Obviously, when you've got players like Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, running the ball isn't going to be all that hard. There were some ups and downs throughout the season. Obviously, this didn't go the way they wanted, hence why we saw a change in head coach. But we've got a lot of picks to play with here. They've spent, first and foremost, we have 10 picks. We're not going to make any trades, albeit this mock draft simulator does do trades. We are not going to. We're going to stay at 14. We're going to make all of our picks as they fall. But I know that inevitably teams will make trades, and that would not surprise me if Baltimore, with all these picks, moved around a little bit depending on what their need is. The head coach of this team, the guy that comes in and takes over this team, is going to have a lot to play with. I mean, they've made some good decisions. There are some good players. There's a good core on this team. Depending on what they look to do, you know, if it's a head coach that comes in that sticks with a very similar kind of 3-4 defense, they've got a lot of pieces, and they even spent some early round capital last year to add some more pieces. You know, think about Mike Green and some of these guys that they've gotten. Malachi Starks, you know, obviously they got Kyle Hamilton. I mean, there's a lot to work with on this defense, and the same goes with the offense. I think the line is in a decent spot. There is some room to grow along the offensive line, but they drafted some young guys that I liked last year. You know, Carson Vincent was a late round pick that I was a big fan of coming out, as well as Emery was, I think, a really interesting interior guy that I think will develop. So you've got a lot to work with. I think when we start to look at how this board falls out, it'll be fun to make some of these decisions and look to bolster this roster. But I think this is a team that's going to be pushing for playoff contention next year as well from the get-go, and it's going to make whatever head coach gets the opportunity look really good. Up on the clock at pick 14, I think this would be a really best case scenario if this happens, because I think defensive line is what I would target if I was looking at this roster first and foremost. They don't really have that kind of stud interior defensive lineman. If they do stick with a 3-4 type defense, you kind of need that anchor right there in the middle that's going to be a gap controlling, penetrating defensive lineman. And I think Peter Woods gives you that. You know, he's going to measure probably 6'5"-ish, well over 300 pounds. I think he's got enough burst to be able to play inside or outside and really start this transition to whoever is the new head coach off right. It would not surprise me if you saw them trade back a little bit and maybe target Caleb Banks or Cade McDonald. I think all three of these guys would fit really well in one of those 3-4 base defenses. And I think any one of these guys would be a good choice. I'm going to go Peter Woods just because of these three. I think he's my highest rated at the present time. Back on the clock at pick 45, I'm going to jump on a wide receiver at this point. Chris Bell, I think, is a great choice at 6'2", probably going to run in the low 4.4s. I think he's probably one of the faster receivers in the draft class. And for a team that has some big play ability with Flowers and we've seen some of these other pieces show something. I think Bell really is one of those guys that would push for early starting work. And I think he's somebody that you could trust. I think he's kind of a big play threat waiting to happen. And if you're kind of sticking with a lot of the core that you have with Lamar and some of these pieces, I think you need to give him some weapons on the outside again. I think they've got some guys that have been banged up, but Zay Flowers is kind of their true one stud receiver that I feel good going into the season with. I think you need to add someone else. on top of that. And then that gives them the ability to not have to try to rely so heavily on Bateman or Walker, some of these other guys. They can be pieces that come in and you use as chess pieces. Bell, on the other hand, is a guy that can come in and uh, be on the outside and just kind of take over things there. So give me Chris Bell out of Louisville. Back on the clock at pick 80. I think somewhere on day 1 or 2, they would target an offensive tackle. Now, obviously, Ronnie Stanley is getting a little bit older, but I don't think they have a lot of depth behind him. If you look at the way this roster is built, I think they need a guy who could be depth for either side, but would be their left tackle of the future. So here on the board with Isaiah World and Carter Smith, you kind of have two differing pieces. So Carter Smith has been a tackle at a high level at a big time program. It's interesting to say Indiana big time program right now, but Cignetti's doing it there. And when Cignetti and crew came in, Carter Smith was the guy they went to and said, "You're our rock. You're our tackle that we need. You're kind of that cornerstone piece of this offensive line." And you saw him really kind of take his game to the next level. Now, obviously, he was a top 20 prospect coming out of Ohio. I think he's performed really well. But the interesting thing is, I think at the next level, I think he's more a right tackle than a left tackle. So Isaiah World, on the other hand, I think is more left tackle than right tackle. I mean, I think Carter Smith has shown you he can do it for a longer period of time. So if you wanted to tell me that, hey, this guy's done it at a higher level for longer and could be a right tackle, depth left tackle, potentially a left tackle, I would not argue there. I think you're probably accurate there. Isaiah World has definitely he's bigger. He's more athletic. He's got a basketball background, so he's definitely got more athleticism. It's kind of a toss-up for me. They're really very close, obviously, here on this board. But I think after this, you really do see kind of a significant drop-off. I don't think any of these guys stand out below. Any of these guys stand out as like, hey, this is your left tackle of the future. I think there's a lot of intrigue, but there's a lot of development that needs to happen. So for me, I'm going to go with Carter Smith just because I think that he's got the ability to kind of step in and play either side. And I think he's got the maturity and the ability to show you that he can do it. So, but if you went Isaiah World, I would not argue too much just because of that athletic profile. And I think he profiles more as a purely on the left side as opposed to right. I think Smith gives you a little bit of both. Back on the clock at pick 115, I think we're looking secondary this time. I think we could look for a player that could be a depth piece as a corner, as a safety, somewhere in between, a guy that could bounce between both positions. Depending on the direction this team goes on defense, I think you could look a few different ways, but I'm going to go Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina. This guy has the ball hawking ability. He's a sure tackler, kind of a big hitter. The thing that he's going to need to develop still is some of his coverage skills. He's a little bit, I guess, more raw would probably be the best way I could look at his development here on the coverage side of things. But I think he's got enough as a run support, as a guy that you can put in the box and really let him go after it, that I think he's a guy that you're going to probably see drafted 4th round. Somewhere between the 4th and the 5th round is kind of where I would project him to go. I like him in a defense like this where you don't necessarily need this guy to start immediately, but you could use him in a variety of roles. I think you could let him be your nickel if you want him to kind of blitz off the edge, maybe be there as run support. You could put him as a safety if you needed to, as you continue to work on the coverage skills. I just think he's a really unique, versatile player in the secondary, and I think that would go really well for a team that needs some depth across the board there. Back on the clock at pick 152, and it is a no-brainer to me. At this point, I was starting to think we definitely need depth running back because Derrick Henry's not getting any younger, and Justice Hill's only under contract for another year. But Lander Barton from Utah sitting here, and this guy, from what I've seen so far, looks like a sideline type linebacker. He's big, physical. He's very fluid. I think you could, if you want to stand him up as an edge rusher in one of those more typical 3-4 schemes, I think he could play outside really well. I think depending on how, with the linebackers that Baltimore currently has on the roster, I think that would be a good position for him if this team goes that direction. I love what this player brings to the table, so I'm going to pound the table for him here at pick 152. Back on the clock at pick 116, I think we're going to pull the trigger on a running back. If Adam Randall's in this draft, he's big, he's physical. If you're looking for that kind of and don't say I'm comping him to Derrick Henry. But if you're looking for a guy that's got the size, that's a physical runner, Adam Randall fits that profile. So if you're looking for that type of player, this would be a great time or a great position to go grab someone like that, especially with what's sitting around him. Moss has been dinged up a little bit, so he's obviously going to slide some in the draft. Taylor's undersized, so if you're looking for an undersized, an under 5'10", extremely fast running back, Taylor would be great. Jam Miller's kind of an in-between, and then Randall's kind of on the larger side. So if you look for that big bruising running back, this would be the guy I would go for. In my mind, this is what I would do, just because you're looking for that, okay, can this guy learn and grow behind Derrick Henry? Back on the clock with back-to-back picks, currently at 172 and 173. And a name that stands out to me is Tyreek Sapp. We've continued to see development from this guy. He's got, very pro-ready frame. I think he's got a lot to like about him, and I think he could develop and continue to grow into a really nice rotational piece as an edge rusher. With his size, depending on how this defense goes, if you see this team turn into more of a four-man front, he could, you could move him around a little bit, either outside or inside. You could, even if you really wanted to, I guess you could probably try to stand him up and do some things there. He's got the athletic profile to do that. So give me this guy late. Let's see what we can do. And then we're back on the clock with pick 173. And with this pick, it feels like a bit of a no-brainer to grab a guy like Keon Sabb. I know we've already grabbed a defensive back, kind of a versatile one. I think Sabb's more of a true safety, but he's smart, he's physical, he's a good tackler. I think he's got the range. And if you wanted to use him as a depth safety with room to grow and to allow you to continue to move some of these other pieces around, I don't think it hurts. So why not go grab kind of one of the best pieces available on the board at this point? I know that mock draft database is telling us grab interior offensive line and tight end. With this team, with the 3 tight ends they have that I really like, I don't know, unless you think they're going to move on from one of them this offseason, which anything's possible. You certainly could, but I'm going to go Sabb here and move on. All right, we're back on the clock, back half of the draft. We were at pick 249. We got 249 and 252. I am going to go with what the suggestion is. DJ Campbell falling this far doesn't make sense to me. I kind of see him as a late day 2, maybe early day 3 prospect. Definitely an interior guy, a developmental guard. This dude's really good in the run game. So, for a team that's looking to continue to lead with the run, to open up for the pass, this guy's a really nice piece to add. He's a massive human being. He's very physical at the point of attack. I think he brings a lot to the table. And for a team like Baltimore, if you're looking for depth interior guard that could develop into a starter down the road, this is the perfect opportunity to grab a guy like this for you. Final pick, 252. Right here at the end of the draft. And I know they got Lamar on the team. I still think at some point, whether it's in the draft or as a UDFA, I think they add a quarterback onto this roster. I don't think that staff will love what they've got in the backups, and having a young developmental player. And if you told me it was a UDFA, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't want to hear the comments going off because I'm not picking Pavia. Man. As much as I love watching this kid, undersized quarterback at his height, he's a dual threat nightmare for teams. But unless you're going to bring him in for a specific type of play and really use him in a gadgety type role, which you certainly could, it would not surprise me. I'm still going to look, for developmental guys that are bigger, 6'2" and up. And Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, he's got a family bloodline. Stidham's played quarterback in the NFL and at college. Dad was an MLB player. There's a lot to like about this kid. He's 6'4". He's got a really big arm. He can press it down the field, do a lot of things that are really intriguing. Plus, he's got surprising movement if you're looking for the mobile side of things. So give me him here at the end of the draft. And now I know things went crazy. We did some different types of picks and we looked at some different types of players, kind of sticking in the vein that this team is probably going to stay with what the core of this team is, kind of the 3-4 modified type defensive scheme that they run, with a running to set up the pass type offense, because they've got a lot of really good players on this team. So I look to add pieces. I look to add some guys that could push for starting roles, some developmental guys that I'm really intrigued by. But let me know in the comments below. What do you guys think? As always, I love that you hang out. I love that you drop your comments. I love that you interact, whether it's on Discord or here on YouTube. We'll talk to you guys again soon.